behind the status of being forcibly displaced, of being a refugee, there is a person.
We need to have refugees have a seat at the table.
I always say, you are who you believe about yourself.
Hello and welcome to State of Africa. I'm Jeff Morte. Now, in the past 2 episodes, we've explored how Africa can find durable solutions for internally displaced persons, refugees, returnees, and host communities. This week, we shift the spotlight to voices that are crucial to solution building, the voices of those who have lived through these experiences. We focus today on vibrant and resilient youth from refugee communities across East and Central Africa. These young leaders share their experiences, challenges, and bold ideas for change. Brought together by the Africa Leadership and Dialogue Institute ALADI in partnership with the MastercardFoundation, they tackle key themes such as livelihoods, empowerment, and social cohesion. Leading this powerful conversation is Sarah Chan, a former refugee and now the Africa Scout Manager for the Toronto Raptors.
Thank you all for joining us for this segment. I'm Sarah Chan, Manager of African Scouting for the Toronto Raptors, and I'll be your moderator for this session. We'll have our panelists. We'll go around for them to introduce themselves. We'll start with the lady.
Thank you. My name is Vanessa Ishimwe. I am a refugee from Uganda, specifically in Chakatu Refugee Settlement. I am a leader of an organization called Authentic African Works, which supports refugee women leadership and economic empowerment, amongst other things. Thank you.
My name is Justin Mahamba. I'm the executive director of Tisha Film. It's a talent shed film. This is a refugee-led organization that amplify refugee voices through visual images. We also have film production training where we equip refugee youth and the host with film production skills so they can tell their stories and also sustain themselves.
Jean-Marie Shimwe is my name. I'm the East Africa Regional Lead for RCIT, Refugees Seeking Equal Access at the Table. I manage the East Africa portfolio, which is Kenya and Uganda, supporting in the institutionalization of refugee participation at state level. Our work is ideally and really aims to support states to institutionalize participation in order to make responses effective and in the end co-design leadership mechanisms that support refugees to be part of solution.
Thank you very much. It is such an honor and such a privilege to have you all share your inspirational and also insightful contribution in finding solutions, but also knowing the struggles and what you have had to overcome, and for you to be able to give us that this afternoon. We'll be as engaging with you participants. Thank you all for taking the time as well. We'll be back and forth between the panelists and the participants. To you, Vanessa, and anybody, because we're here to share. Like she said, was it you that said no wrong or right answers? Yeah. You're being put to the test. Here we are, but you got it. I know you do. What are the key policies or implementation gaps affecting displaced persons?
Thank you so much. I think for the most part, in many parts of Africa, except from where I come from, which is, I'm a refugee in Uganda. But for the most part in Africa, many refugees are still kept in camps. They're still confined in one place. And it's difficult to fully explore who you are, what you want to be, try to get employment or change anything around you if all you know all your life has been in that one place with the same people, with the same problems, with the same solutions or no solutions at all. So I think that is one key thing that if I had to change anything, that would be the one thing.
I will just speak on behalf of the community that I stand for, that is Kakuma Refugee Camp and Kalobeyes settlement, of course. At least from these urban places, the security issues are being taken care of by, the government. But when you go into the refugee camps, that is where the issue is a problem, especially to the refugees. I don't know if it's in the host community, but in the refugee camp. There is movement restrictions, especially when it reaches that 7 p.m. Businesses should be closed. And people are working, and for business people, they make their sales mostly in the evening hours. This is restricting the business to grow because most sales are made in the evening hours. So when people are forced to close their shops, people are restricted from the refugee camp to town where they go pick the merchandise to the refugee camp. You see it's really a problem, and that's why you see business are not thriving.
Thank you so much for that answer, and for you as well. Very insightful. As for Mr. Ishimwe, Jean-Marie.
Jean-Marie Ishimwe.
Yes, that's you.
Mm.
Where are the biggest failures in existing advocacy efforts?
That's a very interesting question. I think I just wanted to actually speak a little bit more on that piece. I think the region, Kenya, East Africa, and Africa in general, we don't lack policies. And this is something you'll go in many places will say this. I actually have a policy with me from IGAD. This is a policy that's been adopted, but I don't know even how many people know about it. We have so many policies, but we have a problem with implementation. I don't know if this is the word is difficult, or maybe it's just we have decided deliberately not to follow through with implementation. But I think that means that there's a very big gap, and this is why I'm coming to that. Advocacy, as I said when I was doing my presentation, is not an event. It's a journey. But what we realize with advocacy is that there has to be a way that you connect it to the community. Unfortunately, for a long time, and most refugees will bear me witness that are here, most of the advocacy for refugees have always been done by people who are not even refugees. I am not saying that they cannot do that, but I'm saying that the space of refugees being able to stand up and speak for themselves, for a long time it was being patronized. So, of course, maybe you have a protection issue, or maybe what Justin has mentioned, they say you lack capacity, yet they take you to school, they allow you to go to school, but you cannot say anything for yourself. It's really very traumatizing. And I think that is the piece that's missing, that we need to have refugees have a seat at the table.
Thank you so much. That was so powerful. And at this juncture, we're going to open the floor to the participants so that you can share with us your life experiences with challenges that you face in advocacy.
One thing I've come to learn is that once you have put yourself into this advocacy journey, it's like there is a kind of tag that you're carrying, and people will look up to you like a person who does not face the same issues that the community is facing. So they will assume because you can be able to talk about it, you might have overcome, which is the contrary of what is the reality. You might be advocating for a particular issue, but still you facing it yourself. So in 30 seconds, I will say that for the community, they look at you as a person who no longer have problems, who actually have made it because they have seen you in a video or maybe in a forum with the bigger people. Now they assume this guy, this girl, this boy, they have really made it, and now it becomes a threat to your personal lifestyle. On the leadership part, there is a threat of why you're trying to address an issue. At some level, some people might see it as a threat on their side, because probably what you're addressing, they are the ones responsible who were supposed to get a solution, or maybe to bring in, the real thing, the real change that you're looking for. And once you're talking about that, so yeah, sometimes that's what happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wow, perception and how to navigate that, especially when it's a threat to you. We'll take one more.
Recently, we were doing an advocacy on economic inclusion in Kajiado County. And when we were advocating for this, how refugees can be included and integrated in terms of economic, and how the refugee can be an opportunity even for the county. And we were going to different offices. The thing that we have come across is that you find that even the county government authorities, some of them, they don't even know the existence of the refugees in the county. And when you try to introduce yourself to them and tell that I'm a refugee and I was just coming to say this and this, they just somehow, they feel, what are you talking about? And they even ask you a question, why did you flee your country? And they start raising now, they bring now other issues. They start saying, you are the one who are sending these people who are working, not to pay tax and all those things. So we found that there is a gap, first of all, and there is a need for us to advocate more in our counties where we are operating from, to sensitize the community and even the authorities, local and others.
Thank you so much for sharing, Ramazani, and thank you to our other participants that have given us their input. I think we can do a better job with a round of applause for them. Thank you very much for being vulnerable, but also sharing your personal experiences. I can attest to what Ramazani said because I have experienced it myself. Doing that through basketball, held a tournament from my own pockets, not the easiest thing to do, and the turnout was, she's been given money to do this within our own community. So I know that's really a big challenge. All right, we'll get back to the panelists and we'll come to you, Vanessa. What are the barriers that prevent effective advocacy? Finance, politics, political sector, and so forth.
Thank you for that question. I think one thing that comes to mind, the very first thing, there is a lot of issues, barriers, including policies, lack of finances, amongst other things. But there is one thing that I don't hear a lot being talked about, and is the fact that refugees and forcibly displaced persons are oftentimes not looked at as human beings. And what do I mean by this? I think people tend to forget that behind the status of being forcibly displaced or being a refugee, there is a person with skills, with a brain, with expertise, and with something to offer. So they are often dismissed. And I thought I had gone past the feeling that being called a refugee is actually a barrier until recently, when I went to a certain organization to get to sign some documents that are supposed to get to the gate. And usually when you get to that gate, when you're wearing something that shows you're working with a certain organization, they'll let you in. I get to the gate and I wasn't wearing any visibility, as they call them. Nothing that shows that I'm working with any certain organization. So I'm just your ordinary refugee. I get to the gate and then I speak to the people who are there at the the police people, the security, and I ask them to see someone who is inside, to which they tell me that that person is not there. And they ask me to move out and go and call the person from outside. In normal circumstances, under normal circumstances, if I wasn't a refugee or if I was just someone, a staff member from another organization, I would have sat there where there is like a lobby where you have to wait, and then they will have called the person, ask the person whether they're expecting me, and ask me to go in. I cannot explain the whole story of how I was disrespected and the words that followed after that, after being told to go outside and call the person from outside. I think there is something ingrained in the people's brains that once you say you're a refugee, the first thing they see is the kids suffering in Kakuma refugee settlement with snot coming out of their noses. It's people who do not know what to do or what to say. And if you make a mistake, God forbid you make a mistake, it's because you're a refugee. Forgetting that every human being makes a mistake. But I also think there is a need to change policies around how to deal with refugees and forcibly displaced people in all sectors.
Yeah, that is very insightful. Thank you so much for your sentiments and your remarks. Any of the panelists want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I can add one thing. I think for the challenges that refugees and refugee advocates face in advocating are really embedded into what sometimes are called systemic discrimination. Unfortunately, for many systems that you're trying to oppose, they will see you as an enemy. And I think there are people who said here earlier that they will see you as if you're taking something against them, you're doing wrong and all these things. And this becomes a barrier in many ways, that you're suppressed, your voice can be suppressed. And sometimes you're in a situation where you want even to speak something, but you're not able to do that. Jonas just mentioned that moments ago. Because you're put in a system where you have to always fear because someone else is protecting you. We all know that God is protecting us more than anyone else, but in the reality of life, sometimes I did journalism, and one of the things we were being told is that there's no story worth your life. But I think these days, it seems that everything is worth your life. You can actually do anything to just be able to fight for your life. And that is what advocates face. So you face oppressive, bad regimes that don't want to hear you. For most organizations that are doing advocacy, this is the most, I think, lowest funded part of refugee organization. They can fund you to distribute food, they can fund you to do whatever, but for you to do these projects around advocacy, they rarely support that very well. So I think there's many challenges, including what Ramazani mentioned, people thinking you have money and you don't have money, and you have to always look like you have and you don't, and all these pieces. But I think the most really for advocates is that getting the proper spaces and proper people to be able to make the change takes a longer journey. So before you reach the president, of course, you'd need to reach some people. These people are stepping on you or they're making it difficult. So it's a really frustrating journey. For many refugees, you can give up, but you don't have that option to give up because you have to keep on. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And while we're still here, could you answer the question, how do displaced people participate in decision-making processes?
Yeah, so thanks. I think the way I want to answer this really is, RSID, the full name is Refugees Seeking Equal Access to the Table. Unfortunately, when many people hear about this name, they think about one refugee having a seat at the table. It's really something that people think about it in that way. But that is not the real sense. The thing is that we are trying to make the people that are important for the system, UNHCR, UN, governments, to realize that if refugees have enough seats in many of these decision-making spaces, then there's a way responses can be better delivered and be better and be effective. And how do we realize this? For 30 years in Kenya, many refugees have been talking about, not for 30 years, let me be a bit more lenient, for a number of years, many refugees talk about documentation, until it's become another choir that we can even make lyrics on. It's just documentation. And you wonder, is the noise that refugees are making not reaching the right people? And for me, they hear it, but they didn't take the action. Recently, I've been dealing with an issue in Kakuma where they're saying, and I know this, that refugees are being paid 10,000, whereas or even lower than that, for a similar post that another community member, in this case a host community, is paid at least 5 times. And this is an issue that has been talked out for a long time. It is not an issue for the host communities. This is not the problem. This is not them causing it. But we find ourselves that the spaces for being able to participate don't allow refugees to actually raise this in the best way possible. So for 30 years, for 10 years, for many years, we continue to speak the choir and all through, and it just, you feel like you're frustrated, you know? Like, why do I have to stay for more than 5 years just speaking about the same thing? So it is those moments and those spaces that I think are not changing and giving the power to refugees. And it's not like political power per se, but it's seeing that refugees have what Vanessa talked about, skills. There are folks here who have masters, they have PhDs, they have skills, they have passion that they can contribute into these spaces. And so normalizing that and socializing that, it's not just about making it good to participate, but it's showing that there's going to be value when people are better engaged and supported to deal with their own solution. There's a time I had somewhere that people went to a community and gave them mosquito nets for mosquitoes, to deal with mosquitoes. The next day, these mosquito nets were being used as nets for post. So you can see the way there's misplaced priorities on what the communities want and what the people want. And this is really what we are talking about, that for a long time, the system has been disconnected by the people that are facing all these things. You face documentation issues, you face employment issues, but this is done in a hypothesis. Like, they never take that in consideration. So for us, is really normalizing that this is the piece to it, participating first. Secondly, it is finding the resources that can offer and help that change to happen. It's only 1% of the humanitarian funding that's going to refugee-led organizations. Not even refugee-led organizations, local organizations. What about the many refugee-led organizations? Less than, I don't know how many percent. So there's that disparity and those problems that we have to deal with. Really, for me, needs a whole new thinking. In the global space, we are talking about humanitarian development and peace nexus. So thinking about humanitarian peace and development, that there is really a need for a pragmatic approach of rethinking how responses and refugee responses are being done. So if for 20 years and for 30 years we've been always giving people money, not money like food, and you're not giving them the chance to actually utilize the skills and the things they learn, then it's not helpful for them and it's not helpful for the country in itself. So there is a piece for humanitarian, and refugees should participate and be allowed that space. There's a piece for development, there's a piece for peace, and they need to be participating there. Let me just say lastly, for where and how you can participate, many refugees, you can do that through, whether it's through creating the Refugee Act. There was some sessions, there's through Parliament, there's various spaces. At the international level, the Global Refugee Forum is one of those spaces that you can get your voice into those spaces and see that your community is advocated for, or the priorities are pushed there. The EXCOM, the Executive Committee for UNHCR, this is the most important governing body for UNHCR. It discusses the budget, discusses the priorities. So if refugees' priorities are not being taken into those spaces, it means that we will continue to struggle, that refugees are not having the services they need, which is the spaces that they need. So many pieces, let me say three things again. So you can engage as a refugee into these spaces as an RLO leader. So with your own organization, you can participate and be part of those sessions. You can, and I want to encourage organizations that are working with refugees to hire refugees, not just as mobilizers, not just as incentives, not just as interns, but really if you're speaking about inclusion, then walk the talk. Give those money to refugees, provide the opportunities, provide the jobs, because it's only when that happens, when that the rethinking is really more of how do you give the power to refugees, and then things will start to change. So empower refugees, give them the jobs and all those things. And then lastly, not everyone will get the chance to go to Geneva. Not everyone will get the chance to come to Elementaita. We need to know which spaces exist for participating, and where can we build coalitions, and where can we build that kind of allyship. So there's a role for everyone for me. I think participating is not just on those international level. We might be doing a lot more of that work, but I think we're always saying, and we're always telling refugee advocates, it is not someone else advocating for you. It's you seeing what is the space for you to be able to contribute to that change you want. And change starts with you. And Nelson Mandela said, just as I saw, it's a friend to Sarah. He said, it feels impossible until it's done. So this is what we need to just have a motivation for. I think for me, with the challenges I faced as a refugee, I see many challenges, but I always feel that there's hope to still get things moving. So we just need to keep pushing and advocate for ourselves. Let's get our voices to be in those spaces that we think we are not supposed to be there, yet we're supposed to be there.
As a refugee, you can and should engage. When refugee communities are better engaged, they drive better solutions for themselves. Amazing insights from Jean-Marie Ishimwe. We're taking a short break, but don't go anywhere. You're watching State of Africa. Welcome back to State of Africa. Now, before the break, we heard powerful perspectives from young refugees on collaboration, responsibility sharing, and sustainable solutions, the very pillars of the Global Refugee Compact. But what challenges do they face in their advocacy journey? Let's find out.
We'll ask the participants to also share some of the obstacles that you have faced and look for solutions. But walk the talk, yeah? Sustainable solutions and dialogue. And there's nobody doing it better than ALADI. Provide the platform and bring brilliant, vibrant, capable people that are advocating. You didn't have to do this, right? But we're also so grateful for the platform to be able to share, platform to express ourselves, for our voices to be heard, and also look for sustainable solutions. So we'll open the floor to our participants, share some of the, your life experiences with obstacles and your suggested solutions.
I'll just use an example, just like the way we were trying to find strategies to better tell our stories and honor our stories. We should also advocate for best approaches to also find solutions, durable solutions for the challenges that refugees are facing. For instance, I will give an example of this house. Let's say we're all staying in this house and it's just me and Jean-Marie, and we find a donor who's Sarah and tells us that our roof needs to be fixed and they are willing to help. So, and then we are told to get out and they will hire somebody else to come and fix the roof. And they are paid per hour. So when they're fixing the roof, imagine you're not there. Exactly. So now you're told to come back tomorrow when the roof is fixed for you. So when it rains the next day, it's leaking again. Where's the problem? You are not there. The person who's fixing the roof does not stay in that house. So we need to advocate for what I call human-centered design approach, where you place the beneficiary at the level of finding solutions of their problems. That is the missing aspect, and we'll continue talking about our participation if we don't advocate for that approach.
In as much as we might have opportunities to go to those platforms, is the time that we are given and now we are asked to give a message in a certain way. I've struggled so much, and I found myself so furious when I was in New York. Someone is telling me to give my experience in 2 minutes. And then there was a politician who was given 15 to 20 minutes to present something about refugees and about the governments, and it's not so as much as what I can share. So in as much as we are going for those platforms and we are given the platform to speak, we are not given adequate time. And what I was saying is, can we also sit down and say, actually told them, youth have to come up with their own platforms, because what is the meaning of meaningful engagement of youth or meaningful engagement of refugees? There is nothing, there is no criteria, or like there is no a guideline when I look at and I'll say I have been meaningfully engaged. I've been taken to New York, does it make it meaningful? I have been given a mic to speak, does it make it meaningful? And the 2 minutes, does it make it meaningful? So I also want you to know, if you go out there, own your own story. Talk about what you want to say. Like when I was going to New York, they told me, we'll write you as someone from Kenya. And I told them, I will not go to New York if you write that I'm from Kenya. I'm a South Sudanese, and that should remain. I'll speak of goodness of Kenya, but then you cannot say, because I'm a refugee in Kenya, you want to identify me as a Kenyan. So those are the struggles we also face, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Monica. Emphasis on identity, authenticity, and meaningful contributions. We'll get back to our panelist, Mr. Justin. What are the risks and limitations faced by displaced advocates?
Thank you, Sarah. That's a very good question. I will talk about 3 points here, one of which is fear. The problem is, how are you protected? And you don't have to be against their opinion when you are an advocate. I'm talking this in the context of storytelling. You don't really have to be against their opinion. In the camp, especially for storyteller, we always have meetings with the NGOs trying to retreat us from posting things. There are things to post, to talk about, and there are things you should not talk about, especially if there's a fight in the camp. If there's something that will talk against their actions, that will criticize their intervention in the refugee camp, you don't have to do that unless you ensure your security within the area. There was a time I posted, I was moving around the camp, and I had my camera. I witnessed a scenario where police was beating seriously a refugee that is late. It was still 8 p.m. He was actually from the market, and I was shocked. I wanted to talk about the issue because I even took a picture of that particular problem. In 30 minutes of posting, I got an email from the county, from the media, that you will need to explain this. I immediately had to delete the post. So whatever you say, whenever you have a topic, it shouldn't be against their opinion. So the next is the language barrier. This is a problem for advocates, especially it even limited someone and also decrease the confidence level. Of course, you have opinion, you are witnessing things, you are living the situation, and you really want to raise awareness. But some of us come from different countries where some speaks French, Kiswahili, and other languages. So this kills your ability and your confidence to go out there and say something about the situation. The other one is the resources. In the refugee camp, there's a serious financial instability where someone cannot afford 100 shillings you can imagine, my brother talked about the payment rate, the salary rates to 8,000, 6,000, 5,000. You need a laptop for research, you need a camera, you need some of these equipments, technical resources to carry on your advocacy journey. But due to lack of, finances, you find that it hinder your ability to go ahead. And the space. Okay, you have the message, you have the information, you've collected all the data, and you are living, of course, the situation. You want to talk about it, but where? The platforms, of course, the platforms are there, but there are spaces, there are forums where you can be heard, forums where there are people, the specific audience that you have to address the message. Some of this topic, I think many people have talked about it, where the documents, the travel documents and so on, that allows us to sit, to participate in the, the decision-making forums. Less like one for a year, you will find one person left Kakuma to talk about the situation. And you find that there are many gaps, there are many problems that are not been addressed, because there's that one person in a whole year representing the refugees. You see? And if you want to go, if you get the opportunity to be invited, you need the document. There are some officials in the, in the agencies that will tell you, will urge you to say what they want you to say. I was in a Kakuma Youth Parliament where our speaker was invited to talk about refugee youth. He was obliged to say what they want him to say. If not, they will find another one to stand on his place. So because he was, I don't know what happened in the room. Of course, they gave him a paper and everything written on a paper. So what he said is not what the community expectations. He just said what they wanted him to say. So you can see the space doesn't allow advocacy to go effectively. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Wow. As we come to the last part of our panel questions, this one will be open for any of you to answer as we go by, but this is the actionable next step. We have talked about the challenges, the obstacles, the risks in advocacy. And I can come to you, but feel free for you to answer. What concrete steps can stakeholders take to strengthen advocacy efforts? You want to take that?
Since I have the mic, I might as well go. While my fellow participants, panelists, were talking, I kept thinking about how rich the words they were saying, and it brought me to thinking about, I think, something that Jean-Marie Ishimwe said. Finding the spaces for advocacy is very key. Now, someone will argue that those spaces exist. But how is it that a space is going to exist? Say we are having a meeting or anything, an outreach, a meeting that is happening, and it's supposed to talk about refugees and refugee obstacles and challenges and solutions. And it is being held in a country where they very well know not so many refugees are going to be able to access. I think it is important to, if there are key, again, in the spirit of involving the people who are affected to be crafting their own solutions, let's make the again, the tables metaphor, the tables accessible. Let's make these spaces accessible. If we have to talk about issues that are affecting refugees, why don't we have the GRF in Nairobi, where it's simpler and easier for many refugees to access, with just 72 hours of receiving your electronic travel authorization, So I think it's important to not only speak about these things and hear them, and I think there needs to be action around such things like that. Make the spaces accessible. Partner with refugee-led organizations. I think that's very, very important. And partner with refugee-led organizations respectfully. I say respectfully because there's a tendency of partnering with refugee-led organizations and expecting them to do work, for example, for free and work 24/7. And at the end of the day, assume that they are doing nothing. Someone will email you and tell you they need you in 2 minutes or in an hour. And you have to put down everything that you're doing to come and attend to them. Someone once told me to go back to my small work. In other words, whatever you're doing is not as important as what I am doing. I'm running a whole organization that employs people. It is my responsibility to make sure that those people are paid every month. But you are being employed and you think your work is better than mine. Not that I think that their work is less than mine, but I feel there is lack of respect in these partnerships again. Do not expect people to just do work for free. Again, it goes back to the thing that I was saying, that refugees are not considered human beings. If someone who is working, for example, for UNHCR is being paid to be an accountant, why do not expect an accountant in an RLO to be paid? Why is it okay for someone who works with an NGO to own a car, to own a house, to own land that they have worked for with their blood and sweat, but when it's a refugee doing that, it's then a problem? Refugees are expected to be happy with the little that they're given. You should be grateful. You should be thanking us for helping you. We do not owe you anything. While that is somewhat true, while we could make the argument that it's true, I think there needs to be a level of understanding amongst these people that we work with directly and the ones that make these policies, that if we decide indeed to partner with refugees, we need to do it respectfully and meaningfully. And it's a very, very key thing there. Again, I'll reiterate this. There is a lot of richness in resources and skills amongst refugees, and it can be used to the fullest if they want to.
Indeed. Before we go for one of the other solutions from our panelists, I think we'll throw it back to the participants, if you have a solution.
Yeah, thank you. We often say that we know that the media reflects the society, and the society amplifies what it sees in the media. That is where stereotypes are born, and it is a very gray area that I think intentional representation is needed. When we see that a story is being told, as she said that when she went to an office, the mind of that guy was just of like a kid in like a refugee camp, barefoot, and has like mucus on the nose. That's what they have in mind. That's the picture that they have of a refugee in mind, and that's what is always being amplified. And I think on the first day when we were here, that night when we were like having the dance and everything, Davy made something, or like said something that I liked. He said that he liked what is being done there. when we were like playing diverse songs and dancing and everything. Why can't we see this in the media? Why can't this be represented in the media? Why is it like they are just like representing the other side, whereby they post like over kid? Actually, it was like five months ago, like a kid was being posted on social media, a disabled refugee kid, and like all the pictures that were being posted on of him were that he was having flies all over the face. That's what they post, and that's what they want the society to amplify, not this other side whereby we have a rich culture, we have like diverse cultural backgrounds and good tidings out of that. Why can't that be amplified in the media so that that's what the society can absorb? So that when they see like a person or like an IDP, they don't just have like a picture of like a kid in like a refugee camp, barefoot and everything. They see you as a whole, as a human with like its richness and like a whole like person with a beautiful face and all that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jerry, for your contribution. Back to our panelists. How can displaced persons, and Justin, if you wanted to take that up, but anybody else on the table, on the round table, as Omina said, can take this question. How can displaced persons take ownership of advocacy initiatives?
For me, I think as the victim, as the people, the very people affected by the situation, there are many challenges that we've just raised here, many problems, limitations, of which we mentioned the resources, you know, the space, and the denial to, you know, the decision-making forums. All these are problems that we are facing. But if we take it as our own issue, as we are the only people affected by it, and there's no one coming to help us. When you're advocating for the people around you, you are advocating for your own family. You're advocating for your own people, for your own tribe, for your own, you know, culture. So when you take it that way, there's nothing that can stop you. You will keep going, and you will even preach. You will make sure you even skill other people to carry on that advocacy work to make sure you bring the impact and change in the society you stand for.
Thank you so much for your contribution, Justin. Vanessa, you want to add to that?
Yeah, something that follows what I was saying around partnering with refugee-led organizations. I think I'm going to ask my community of forcibly displaced people something tough. In many times, someone will come with their solution, their pre-designed activities for you to do, speaking to refugee-led organizations especially. And they're giving you money. And I've been in a place where I can take money to do anything because I need the money, right? But I feel like in a sense, refusing certain type of aid, especially if it does not align with your values and does not align with the solutions that you want to see within your community, is very important. It's a very difficult thing to do, especially when you really, really need that opportunity. But in a sense, you're owning your pride, your dignity, and your advocacy. And if more people do that, I feel like it can send a message to whoever is funding activities in these spaces that we are not going to accept things that do not actually create real change.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. And to cap it off for today, we'll have our last question that will go to Jean-Marie. What partnerships or support structures are needed?
Yeah. This is a question for the whole day. For me, the way I see partnerships is how you approach people and how you approach different networks of people who can be supportive to you. I always see fundraising and partnerships as friend raising. So if you're always going to spaces thinking about how you will connect with these people and you tell them about what you're doing, it's going to be an easy way of them seeing what motivates you to do what you do and possibly invest money and invest their time into supporting you. But there's many spaces and many things for that regard. I think we need to look for better allyship, find the organizations that trust and see the vision of us. This can be donors, it can be funders, it can be policymakers and what have you. For advocating, you have to know the right spaces and know the right people to discuss some of these things. So knowing the policymakers, knowing like even something little as knowing who's your MP, who's your MCA would go a long way in terms of knowing where and how to reach out to partnerships. I think the most core one with advocacy is the role of academia and evidence. Many times I've been in spaces where someone was countering what I was saying, or someone was saying, when you say many refugees are struggling, what do you mean? You know, so they're like, okay, give us a number and stuff like that. Because they know you don't have the funding to do all that research, and they want to pick you on that point you don't know. So I think finding the people who can help you in academia, research, would go a long way to make sure that our advocacy, our work is really strong. So I think bottom line, fundraising. Top line, I think if you can have as much branches as possible to see who and what could be beneficial for organization and advocacy, go for it.
Thank you so much. We're running out of time, so I'll go to the 5 actionable steps and solutions that we have heard from both our panelists and the participants. The first one is keep pushing. Participation by forcibly displaced people needs to become a norm. This means continually engaging with stakeholders within your reach. This also needs to have the value to the community. Walk the talk, like he said, right? The second point is advocate for human-centered design approach to solutions to forcibly displaced people challenges. And the third one is have forcibly displaced people's invited or stakeholders to their meetings and events as well. We can't have, like what Monica said earlier, the politician that has the 15 minutes, but the person that's really affected and has the solutions to her own context have 2 minutes. It makes no absolute sense. The fourth one is partner meaningfully with organizations and other stakeholders, and then also seeking partnerships that see forcibly displaced peoples as equals and partners who have value, like Vanessa shared with us. Then the last one, we need to be intentional with how we represent ourselves to play our parts in countering stereotypes, personal branding, right? And honestly, this has been such an incredible journey. Thank you all for lending an ear, but also for your inspirational journeys and sharing with us that, and also looking forward to more sustainable solutions, but also thank you for your courage to be able to share. Thank you for your courage to be able to address these issues that are pressing. I always say, you are who you believe about yourself. So I hope that we all believe in a future and a life worthy of all our dreams and aspirations. Thank you to the participants, and thank you to our panelists.
An enriching conversation with impactful action points. Number 1, continuous stakeholder engagement within local communities. Human-centered solutions designed with and for displaced communities. Inclusive platforms inviting diverse stakeholders to refugee-led events. Strategic partnerships for sustainable change. Authentic representation to challenge stereotypes and change narratives. Now next week, we head to Lagos for a deep dive into innovative financing for sustainable solutions for internally displaced persons. Thank you for watching State of Africa. Until next time, goodbye.